Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another reading for Mr. Floppy 19. We are going to be reading The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. I have never actually read this book before. I've only ever seen adaptations of it, whether it be a cartoon or a film, whether it be animated or live action. So without further ado, here is The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. It was Christmas Eve at the Stahlbaum house, and Maria and her younger brother Fritz could hardly contain their excitement. Every year their parents hosted a wonderful party with music, dancing, and the sweetest selection of holiday treats you ever tasted. But what Maria looked forward to most of all was the arrival of her beloved grandfather, Herr Drosselmeyer, and the marvelous gifts he was bound to bring. Herr Drosselmeyer, you see, was a master clockmaker and ingenious inventor who tinkered away in his workshop all season long to create the most magnificent toys for Maria and the other children. "Well, what has he made this year?" Maria wondered. Suddenly, the parlor door flew open, and a funny old man with a scraggly beard and crooked smile hurried in and shook the snow from his long flowing cape. At last, Herr Drosselmeyer had arrived. As the old man placed a heavy package under the twinkling Christmas tree, the curious children gathered round for a better look. Whatever it was extremely large and exquisitely wrapped, with a beautiful bright red bow to tie it all together. With their parents' permission, the children tore open the wrapping to discover a glorious mechanical castle with towering spires, a working drawbridge, and the finest regiment of steadfast tin soldiers ever assembled. Herr Drosselmeyer wound the great key to the castle, and the children's eyes grew wide as the soldiers inside began to move this way and that, marching together in perfect formation until a tiny toy cannon brought the entire affair to a close with a magnificent pop. The children squealed with delight as the guests applauded Herr Drosselmeyer's impressive handiwork. "Well done, sir," Dr. Stahlbaum exclaimed. "You have outdone yourself yet again." While Fritz frowned through the castle windows at the now perfectly still tin soldiers, Herr Drosselmeyer reached into his waistcoat pocket and presented Maria with one last gift, a special surprise just for her. Maria gently squeezed the mysterious package through its colorful wrapping, and her face lit up like the candles on the Christmas tree. "It's a doll, isn't it?" Herr Drosselmeyer said nothing as Maria carefully pulled back the paper to find it wasn't a doll at all, but an odd little man made entirely of wood. Can you guess what it was? Why, it was a nutcracker, of course, and a most peculiar one at that, with long, spindly legs and a large wooden head much too big for his stout little body. Painted bright red like a soldier, he wore shiny black boots and a tall matching hat that sat neatly atop his oversized head. A long fuzzy beard barely concealed 2 rows of huge white teeth, giving the poor chap a rather grim expression. Despite the nutcracker's unusual appearance, Maria loved him at once. "Oh, grandfather, he's simply splendid. Really he is." She hugged Herr Drosselmeyer tight, thanking him for the gift. Fritz, however, was hardly impressed. He snatched the nutcracker from his sister, inspecting its enormous white teeth. "Splendid, indeed!" Before Maria could stop him, he jammed the biggest nut he could find between the nutcracker's open jaws and squeezed the lever with all his might. A dreadful crack echoed through the parlor, and Marie let out a gasp. It wasn't the shell of the nut that had broken. Oh no, but the nutcracker itself. His lower jaw dangled loose and wobbly as Maria seized the poor nutcracker from her careless brother. "Oh, Fritz!" she cried. "What have you done?" Maria desperately searched for her grandfather to repair the damage, but the hour was late and Herr Drosselmeyer was nowhere to be found. Wrapping the sad little nutcracker in a handkerchief, the heartbroken Maria carefully laid him beneath the tree and retired to bed, where she quietly cried herself to sleep. Bathed in the glow of the bright winter moon, Maria tossed and turned in a most fitful state. All she could think of was her poor little nutcracker, broken and alone under the Christmas tree. "Oh, he must be so frightened with no one there to comfort him," she fretted. "And on Christmas Eve, no less." Unable to stand it any longer, Maria climbed out of bed and crept down the hall to check on him. Maria peeked into the empty parlor, relieved to find the nutcracker precisely where she had left him, and tiptoed across the room ever so softly as to not disturb the tiny tin soldiers scattered about. She gazed down at the injured nutcracker. How lonely he looked with his broken jaw, and yet Maria couldn't be sure. but he seemed to be smiling. "Silly girl," she thought. "It's just a toy, and toys can't smile." Or can they? Maria knelt beside the grinning Nutcracker for a closer look, when her ears perked up at the pitter-patter of 1,000 tiny feet, and she turned to find twice as many tiny lights twinkling in the darkness. No, not lights. Eyes! Small and round and black as night, the beady eyes of angry mice. The floorboards creaked and groaned as they squeezed their fat, furry bodies through every crack and crevice to swarm the parlor floor. A frightful squeak! And the mice grew still. A terrible rodent with a razor-sharp crown capped upon his hideous head strode through the ranks inspecting his army. The startled Maria stared in horror at the menacing Mouse King, who hissed and screeched with ghastly delight, when a valiant voice cried out from the dark, "To arms! To arms!" Lickety-split, the Nutcracker leapt between Maria and the Mouse King, brandishing a long silver saber as he roused the sleepy soldiers from their slumber. They rose up at once and charged into battle. Oh, what a battle it was! Mice scurried to and fro beneath Maria's feet, gnashing their teeth as they stormed through the castle gates. The soldiers inside readied the cannon, scattering the great mouse army with a boisterous boom. And the fight was far from over, though. Clang, clang went the Nutcracker's sword as he fought back the Mouse King's relentless attacks. The ruthless rodents scratched and sliced and bit the Nutcracker until the poor little fellow found himself cornered with nowhere to run. Quick as she could, Maria pulled off her slipper and hurled it to the floor. The frightened mice fled in a flurry of fur, distracting the Mouse King just long enough for the Nutcracker to deliver a fatal blow. The soldiers let out a triumphant cheer, but alas, the victory had come at a terrible cost. The Nutcracker stumbled and fell to the floor. Maria rushed to his side. "Oh, my brave little Nutcracker," she sobbed. The battered Nutcracker smiled through his crooked jaw one last time before his eyes grew dark and heavy, just as the clock struck midnight. All at once, the room began to swirl around Maria, and the Nutcracker arose to his feet. Only he wasn't a wooden Nutcracker anymore, but a handsome young prince dressed in a regal red-trimmed coat with the finest gold threads she had ever laid eyes on. The grateful prince bowed and handed Maria her slipper. "Dear lady," he said, "your courage has broken the Mouse King's curse, and I am whole again. Allow me to repay your kindness with a visit to my kingdom, where I shall show you the most wondrous things imaginable." No sooner had Maria taken the prince's hand than the walls of the parlor melted away to reveal an endless white snowfall far as the eye could see. A great silver sleigh appeared before them, and Maria climbed aboard next to the prince. With a wave of his hand, the sleigh took to the sky, higher and higher until her house was but a distant memory, and the village below was scarcely bigger than one of Herr Drosselmeyer's playthings. As tiny snowflakes fell all around, Maria stuck out her tongue, delighted to discover they tasted of sugar. The prince gave a whistle and set down the sleigh in the magical meadow that sparkled and shimmered with all the colors of Christmas. At last they had arrived in the land of sweets. Maria could hardly believe her eyes. Everything was made of cookies, cakes, and confections of all shapes and sizes. There were gingerbread mountains with buttercream peaks and a peppermint forest of candy cane trees. In no time at all, they had come to a glorious marzipan palace that glittered with gumdrops and jelly bean jewels. They were greeted at once by the Sugar Plum Fairy, who welcomed them with warm, steaming mugs of piping hot cocoa. Upon learning of her part in the Mouse King's defeat, the Sugar Plum Fairy crowned Maria an honorary princess and declared a royal feast to celebrate the prince's safe return. With a wave of her hand, trumpets blared throughout the palace as one by one the good people of the kingdom presented Princess Maria with an endless assortment of mouth-watering treats from every corner of the land of sweets. There were bushels of butterscotch and bonbons galore, trays filled with tea cakes and toffee and more. From hazelnut truffles to Turkish delights, she savored the taste of each scrumptious bite. When Maria had eaten her fill, the royal musicians began to play a lovely Christmas waltz. The prince extended his hand with a bow. "Would you do me the honor dear lady," Maria replied with curtsy, and together they danced without a care in the world. As they twirled and twirled some more, a strange sensation came over Maria. Perhaps she was sleepy from too many sweets, but they seemed to be floating high in the air. Clutching the prince, Maria gazed on the distant palace to see the sugar plum fairy waving goodbye. Suddenly, her head grew dizzy, as if in a dream, and she felt herself falling from an immense height. Maria woke up with a jolt, safe in her bed. Sunlight sparkled through the frosted window panes. Christmas morning had come at last, but where was her precious Nutcracker? She leapt out of bed and raced to the parlor, only to find an empty handkerchief where she had laid the broken Nutcracker the night before. Maria's heart sank in despair, but then Fritz burst in from the kitchen, smelling of freshly baked cinnamon buns. "Merry Christmas, Maria!" He pulled something from behind his back and handed it to his sister. Can you guess what it was? Why, it was the Nutcracker, of course. Maria's Nutcracker, as noble and handsome and regal as ever, his crooked mouth mended with teeth straight and white. As she cradled the Nutcracker tight in her arms, Maria couldn't be sure, but he seemed to be smiling, because he was. The end. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. Like I said, I have never actually read this book, and I was genuinely surprised at how close the adaptations had made. So I hope that you guys had fun reading along with, and I hope that you guys all have a very Merry Christmas. I will be doing a Charlie Brown Christmas next. Yes, they did make that into a book, and I can't wait to bring it to life for you guys. If you like what I do, go ahead and consider liking this video. Comment, share, subscribe, do whatever. This is Mr. Floppy 19 signing off. Thank you and God bless you all. And once again, I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.